Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Village You Don't See. This week, we're chatting with Kinna Thomas. Kinna is currently the Senior Director at Target Stores overseeing planning for food. Kinna has held several leadership roles in retail. She has worked for Payless, JCPenney, Walmart, and now Target. Kinna is a wife, mother of two beautiful boys. Kinna is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated. Welcome to the show, Kinna.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So I know that, this last 2 years has been really difficult for everybody, but I just wanted to hear from you. How's the last 2 years been, with the pandemic, racial unrest, and, probably working from home? How's that been like for you?
It's been a really interesting journey as I think about the couple of things that you've named out. So, first of all, the whole pandemic, like I'm such an extrovert and an outgoing person that, like, in this scenario where I'm having to be confined at home and rethink a
Yeah,
lot of the ways that we connect relationally, it was tough. It was tough initially for me.
yeah,
The things that it did bring about, though, that I think was really, really good was a self evaluation. So I made a big career change over this time frame. And it was really on the onset of what I was most passionate about as a person. And so it brought about good in evaluating whether or not I felt like my purpose was tied into a
yeah.
role that I had last. And then it brought
Okay.
about this new opportunity. The ways of working from home are definitely not my favorite. I prefer being in person, right? Like I
I
just
hear you.
prefer hanging out with people, getting to know people, and leading by example and physically being there. And so that was all tough for me to sort of deal with, but there was some bit of blessing that came out of it.
Yes.
As far as like the civic portion of everything and the racial unrest
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
social justice and racial equity are concerned, that brought about something else, right? Like it's just clear
Yeah.
visibility to how the world is unfair, and that was hard to deal with
Yeah.
too. I mean, we've dealt with a heavy couple of years, but as I
Yeah.
think about that, I'm grateful that people are more aware. I'm also grateful for change and hope, as a lot of people have redefined strategies and come up with new best practices now that bias is known, a little bit more known and a little
Yeah.
bit more clear,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it's been for the last 2 years for me. We've had some extreme highs, but also those really big breaking points to have you evaluate whether or not there needs to be something done differently. So I feel like my family has been incredibly nimble during this time frame. We went
Yes.
from being at the kitchen table trying to teach them kids from home to like sending them back to school and can't wait,
Yeah.
first in line.
Yeah. It's like get them out of the
Yep.
house. Yeah. And I mean, so how's your typical day change? So I mean, in the past, you probably woke up, dropped them out, into the office where you're working, and did your stuff, picked them back up, probably maybe stayed. How has that changed from your typical day right now? So how does that look like for you?
Yeah, so the typical day has changed drastically for me. It
Yeah.
starts the same though. So one thing during the pandemic
Yeah.
that I've held up over this last 2 years is I still get up and get dressed every day. I still get up and work out every day.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Mental health right there. Yeah. Yeah.
that is because like for my own mental health and my own
Yeah.
mental stability. And plus I got all of these clothes I'm like, I'm gonna wear. And so
I haven't bought clothes in a long time.
most
Okay.
people, that's the case for most people. I kept with it. So I, I what one of the things that I felt like was really, really important is just to stay consistent and like have a routine. So that's the part of my routine that remained the same. Then what
Oh,
ended up being different is like right now, I take the kids and drop them off at school or I bike ride with them to school. So that's new or something different for us as
yeah.
a family.
Okay.
And then when I come home, I learned very quickly I could not accomplish what I needed to accomplish at the kitchen table. So we set up a room as an office in the house. so that I had a stable place where I was entering a door and felt like I could, close it if the kids get loud after school and that sort of thing. So that was something that was a big change, was creating this stable sort of office environment and decorating it and making sure I felt like it was a productive place, a place where productivity could live. And so that was important and really different. And then the other thing is I put dinner on early now that I'm here.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a good
You
change.
know, I love to cook. So I'm actually able to do that a whole lot more now. And I can do that from home. I can do that, with a cam off and a Zoom call if I need. I can take a walk over lunch now, which is not something
Yeah.
historically I've been able to do. So it definitely had its benefits, but it's just not my favorite. Can we please?
You're ready to go back and
Yes.
like see people. No, and probably for you, I'm sure every connection now becomes a meeting on Zoom. So you're probably spending a lot of time, having meetings too, right? Probably because everybody that wants to connect with you
Yep.
probably wants to have a meeting. So,
Yep.
but let's rewind a little bit here. So let me take you back. I don't know if I say the year might remind you. Let me take you back to 2015, I think. 2015 or 2016, patty pies, right? Well, I think that's when like I know Instagram was around, but I know digital and that stuff there getting big on like TikTok and stuff. So you went on this journey to bring in, saying, hey, I want to bring in someone that represents the culture into bakery at Walmart, and you partnered with Patty LaBelle, and you brought this pies, and I don't remember how much they retail for. Was it like um, I
four
know that
dollars.
when it was said $4,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know when it was said and done, some people were selling this thing for $60 online or something, right? I know it got so scarce that people were selling on eBay for like $60 and guys were bidding for it. So let's go back to that time. I know we don't, I we always want to talk about the future, but I want to give you your roses on that time, because what people don't understand is that, I mean, talk about viral sensation in one of the most important time frames of any retailer, the holiday, right? How we cannot even, I don't know how much traffic that product drove into Walmart. I'm sure there's some analysis of how many people came just looking for that pie and bought something. So tell me, take me to that time, take me through your thought process of why Patty, why trying to do that, and when the success started coming.
Yeah.
How did that, how do you feel?
So Mo, what's so interesting about this story that you're not mentioning is you and I had a conversation before I even
Yes,
started
yes,
doing that, because it was just a
yes,
concept in my mind. I said, I remember meeting you and connecting with you, felt just immediately like kinship, like a
yeah,
brother. And we
yeah,
just started talking, and I said, I want to do something that feels very pointed towards the Black community, where
yeah,
I grew up, that feels like things that I would actually have at my table, at my dinner table. And
yeah,
we talked a little bit about it. And thank you for
yeah.
the encouragement during that time frame.
But also, don't give me all the props. I was like, you gotta be careful here. It's a big bet. Yeah, because I was not all optimistic too. I'm like, Kina, you gotta know what you're doing here. So you gotta be a hit. So thanks for not taking my whole advice. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's so funny because I certainly wasn't risk averse at all. Like, I
Yeah,
wanted to do
yeah,
it. I knew it was something, a part of my purpose. And so a big portion of it was, how do I make it successful? So the short
yeah,
story is, I tasted this sweet potato pie that was on the shelf at the moment, and it didn't taste good. No nice way to say
yeah,
it. And so I
yeah,
leaped into action with, how do I get one that actually tastes good? Landed on the fact that that was not in the market, and I needed to use the base recipe from my mom. And
yeah,
that's really where I started and what was supposed to go into action. Sitting at home at night, had a conversation with my husband saying, I need credibility. from a brand perspective because the brand that we had it in, which was the everyday, regular, freshness guaranteed sort of brand, that
Yeah.
wouldn't resonate, and that the customers, specifically Black customers, wouldn't be able to tell, the difference between that pie and a pie that they purchased the year before, which the recipe
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
drastically different. And I said, well, I need credibility. So I Googled famous people with sweet potato pie recipes. And Paya Bell's
Oh my
name came up.
goodness.
And like
Yeah.
any normal human, I decided that I
Yeah.
was going to reach out to Paya Bell. And so
Oh my
I know
goodness. That's the grind right there, the entrepreneurship grind mindset.
but that's what it takes when you buy for any retailer, any large retailer,
Yeah.
right? You got to treat the business as if it's your own. And plus, knowing the
Your
scale and
own. Yeah.
impact, I knew this could be big. So I reached out, did what I like to call a boss up email. I gave Patty a deadline on her
Mm.
food website is how I reached out, and I said, "Hey, you
Yeah.
have 72 hours to contact me. This is an opportunity that I think could change the lives of many people." Blah blah blah. Within 9 hours, I was on the phone with her team. And we were solidifying an understanding of what I wanted to do. And then also sent them the pie that we were working on. They made a couple tweaks to make it a little less my mom, a little bit more Patty, which is the right thing to do, especially if she was going to
Yeah.
get
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to talk. You were humble enough to say tweak it, but I'm bringing this to you. But you were, so that also took some, I mean, so that's, I mean, sorry, keep going. I just thought that was awesome.
Thank you. No, thank you. Like for sure, for sure. And then so after we went through that process, a couple days later, we solidified a deal that was exclusive to that
Yeah.
retailer and exclusive to bring the product in. I went ahead and I bought double. I had leadership support. The person I reported to at the time was absolutely incredible. I say at the time because the leader you have does make a big difference.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she
True.
was just this incredible beacon of light who brought me into that role and just, watched me flourish and allowed me to just be creative. And I always strive to be that kind of leader myself. So that's why I mentioned her. And after doing this, um, we had a customer that decided to chat about it, like on social media via YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember I was on a day trip. At that company, we would fly all the time, but I was on a day trip and over in Ohio, and I got a message from my assistant at the time, and she said, "Hey, this thing is like I saw this on Facebook. It's kind of blowing up." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I should probably call our PR team." I called them and told them what was happening, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay. Like, thanks for letting us know." It went from that to 2 hours later, them reaching out like, "Oh, we got something big on our hands going on here."
Yeah.
It was the first time a food item had surpassed, I want to say it ended up with over 10 million views, which back
Oh my
then,
goodness.
6, 7 years ago, to have that
Yeah.
kind of viewership is unheard of.
Yeah.
And I liken it
Yeah.
to a couple of things, Mo, because I think a couple of things happened there. I think one, it was so happy and positive. And if you remember what was happening during that time, it was also some civil unrest then. It was
Yes.
a case of
Yes.
Mike
Yes.
Brown out of St. Louis that had
Yes.
captured the media,
Yes.
and all of a sudden, there was also something, super positive for the Black community to sort of talk through,
Yeah.
something to celebrate at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what happened. It went viral, and during the time frame that it went viral, the pie took a value of its own. People started selling
Yes. Yes.
in
eBay
places for
decided.
$60, $90, all of these things
Yeah. Oh my
while we
goodness.
were working on
Oh,
supply, which we ended up, partnering in some very unique ways to make that happen. But I'm grateful for the chance to be able to have authentic uh, dinner table items in the bakery that I would grow up
yeah.
eating. So that particular pie is still the number one pie in the country today. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, yes. And you changed the game because now when I go into Walmart, I mean, I see the peach cobbler.
yep.
I see there's a cake too now. I mean, they're like 5 or 6 items right now that would have never been there if not for that phone call and that idea 6 or 7 years ago,
Yeah.
right? um just the mindset of sticking to what you believe in, really putting in the work and getting it done. And that's why, I mean, you're a leader today in corporate America, corporate retail. And just hats off to you. I didn't want to have this conversation without going back to that time, because I mean, I was like, man, I was with her. I was trying to get a little girl. I'm like, I was with her when she first told me this thing. But I was like, and I couldn't tell everybody what I said. I'm like, I told her the positive stuff, but I didn't say, like, how this can go. But man, you stuck to it. And I mean, there was a lot of things, BT, all the, also the press that you got, and just seeing you. And I mean, I felt like Patty, you're gonna appreciated that, because you probably helped to sell some records to Patty. If you listen to this, I'm sorry, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, you brought up, I mean, shoot, Patty LaBelle never went at extreme, but I mean, just her in that food, solidifying that food part for her too. I'm sure she was so honored
Yeah.
to, and I know there was a lot of awards that went out to that. So I'll switch up things here a little bit. So, when we talk about leadership and we talk about women in leadership, we continue to talk about what that North Star is. So globally, 24% of leadership positions are held by women. But when we come down and look at the United States of America, I think is north of 20 to 21%. So I think about 400 basis points off. You as a leader, how have you continued to advance your career? And then we'll talk about the second one. But how have you continued to advance and break that ceiling as a leader with people under you? And I'm sure there are a lot of young ladies looking at you and saying, I want to be like her when I grow up.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, one thing, I'm always humbled by is the fact that I'm a first generation college student, right? So
Oh my goodness.
um, I didn't see this growing up. And so I'm
Yeah.
actively always trying to be who I needed to see. And so that means like a lot
Whoa.
of community stuff has to happen in order for that to be a reality. But I think the big moment that you're talking about is like who do I look up to and how did I find them? And then how am I pulling up chairs at the table too for other people? And I think that the
Yes.
first portion of that question is I've had some pretty dope women. And I have to use that term because like they are incredible in every right. I've seen, I tend to gravitate towards women who are like me in terms of ethnic background, ethnic and racial
Yeah.
background, which is very
Yeah.
few and far in between. But when I've seen
Yes.
them actively be themselves. And what I realized very
Yeah.
quickly about being a leader is that I won't be able to do that if I don't bring a certain form of authenticity to the table. And I don't shy
Hmm.
away from my past and, the things that I grew up with and the hardships of life and the way that that all went for me. I don't shy away from that because I know that that's a testimony to other girls who are also in like situations where they don't see someone every day in these sort of positions, but like they can actively get there as well. So the first thing I would say is just being authentic. So I'm always looking for true and genuine people. And then I'm very strategic about who I want to be a part of my life. If I've seen somebody speak at a conference or somewhere, I'm intentional about reaching out to them and keeping those relationships up. And then on the other side of it, when someone does that to me, I'm intentional about fostering those two. And so I hope that in some way, shape, or form answers the question because I feel like I could go on and on and on about it.
Yes. No, no, yes. I mean, I I mean, definitely, I feel what you're saying. And I think, when I look at you, that authentic self is just one that resonates for me. You know, I've never looked at you and said, "Hey," or talk to you and say, "I was just trying to be someone else." I just feel like that authentic self is very important, and I think that helps you also solidify the type of people that gravitate towards you too, right?
For sure. Like, for sure.
So let's talk about, okay, now we have, as we get more college graduates, and let's even focus on, people of color coming to corporate America, and you being someone of color. How what kind of advice would you give that Kina coming into corporate America from college, knowing that also there are a lot of people of color that also, are first generation college graduates. My wife is one, though she went to the medical field, very different. But what kind of advice would you give them?
Be open to learning and flexible enough to know the difference between being authentically yourself and learning moments. And that would be the biggest amount of advice I would have is literally, for me, for example, I grew up in a all black neighborhood. And so
Yeah.
I even went to a HBCU for college, which was fantastic, by the way. So my first interactions in corporate America were the first time where I wasn't in the majority in population. And so it was very, very interesting, a very interesting time because what I should have done, and I learned over time, is I should have observed and listened more than I actually spoke.
Huh.
And so I think by listening and observing, you're able to understand the difference between how you grew up versus how someone else grew up, and your relatability changes. It doesn't necessarily
Ah,
mean you change. It just means you
yeah,
understand how to relate differently. You understand what you can share openly without judgment, and then
yeah,
also how to best navigate a situation where you might be the only person of color that they're going to meet or see or know, or you might be fighting against stereotypes or preconceived notions that exist that
just
are beyond your control. And so I
wow,
think the
yeah,
best bit of advice I would have is to observe and listen, and then
listen,
strategically um, get a advocate within the work environment to help you further learn. Somebody who's trusted that you can ask the good, the bad, the ugly to, that can further accelerate your learning in a way that's confidential, and building up total relationship for them as well. So that's what I would do.
okay. Hmm. And you mentioned, as we talk about first generation, is so funny. Like, and I think we also see this from when we think about Hispanic people too. That but when we look at what is happening also in the colleges of, they say amongst students enrolled in four-year public institutions, 45% of Black students complete their degree in 6 years, 4 to 6 years, which is the lowest rate compared to other races, right? We look at some of the dropout rates, and African American, students have some of the highest. Um, so, what would you say is the turning point that you said, okay, I'm going to college, and I'm going to go through college and finish a 4-year university? Like, was it like parents saying, hey, you're going to college and you're going to do this 4-year thing? Or was there a decision can you remember when you made that
Yeah,
decision and
absolutely.
decided,
So Mo, I'm
yeah,
gonna be I'm gonna keep it 100% real with you.
that's what we
I
want?
had no intention on going to college. None. Um, how I
Okay.
ended up there was literally one of my friends was going to this HBCU, and he said to me, and we'd grown up together for a while, like since we were maybe 5 or 6 years old, we've known each other. And he asked what college I was going to, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna own a chain of McDonald's, and
Yeah.
I'm on the entrepreneur kick. And he said, well, I think you should go to college too. And I was like, well, yeah, it's too late now. I didn't take the ABC, ACT. I didn't do any of those things. And he put me in contact with a guidance counselor. The difference between me and others that ended up going to college is um, I actually had somebody who cared for me. And
Yes.
because she cared enough to listen to me and my story, my heart, and understand that the rest of the rules that were in place, she figured out a way to make sure I could take some of the testing I needed so that I was in the right places and had the right aptitude for those things. But that was not my original intent. So I'd like to say because somebody gave me a chance, I am who I am now.
Yes.
And it also makes me very open to giving others chances because that was not the original plan for me. And it was, I went from somebody who wasn't going to go to college to somebody who now has 3 degrees. And so
Oh my
I
goodness.
understand the
Yeah.
value in education, but it really was a matter of once given the opportunity, not feeling like I was going to let somebody else down who gave me a chance.
Yes. Yes. Man. No, that's awesome, man. And you know what you just talked about, we named this show, this podcast, The Village You Don't See.
Hmm.
And the whole reason is that we see people like you, Kina, and what we don't see is all the people Kina talks to for advice,
Hmm.
for this, for that. The guy that sets you up with a guidance counselor, that's someone in your village. So let's focus on your village for a minute. So what is your village like? Like, who are the people you talk to? I mean, you don't know, you don't have to name names, but like, who are the people you talk to for career? Who are the people you talk to just person? How does your village look?
Yeah, I think so. First, let's talk about family because they're a
Yes.
huge portion of my village. Like, I have awesome
Yeah.
parents, and I have a mother who believes in me regardless of what I do. She's always like my number one fan, so it doesn't matter.
Big fan. Shout out to your moms.
Yeah,
Yep.
shout
Yep.
out to her because she is absolutely incredible. I can say just I can talk to her about anything. So that's the thing about parenting that I take with me every day is I want that kind of
Yeah.
relationship for my kids to have with me too, where they can just open up and talk about anything with me and know that I'm not going to overreact. My mother doesn't overreact to anything. And so that's why we have a stable relationship. So I would say it first starts with family. And my mom definitely is a very pivotal point. My dad is also a portion of that. Um,
Yeah.
as I think about other people in my family, I certainly have a great set of, siblings that I can lean on. But I think outside of family, a really close girlfriend network of like-minded
Yes.
people. It is important that you're around people who have the same sort of goals that you have and make you want to be a better person because the conversation
Yeah.
changes around them and they have you level up in a way that you may not have done alone, but because you have the
Yes.
accountability of that, that's important. So I have 4 girlfriends here that I connect with regularly, and we are that for each other. We work for different companies, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to connect, but all leaders in our own special and unique ways. And then what I would also say is from the standpoint of the actual community in which I live in,
Yes.
there are
Yes.
people around that are looking out for my kids in ways that I never even imagined. We're in a city that's 2% Black. And so my kids
Yeah.
are often the only Black kids that are around. You go through this, or like, you know,
Yes.
and with that
Yes.
being said, you need some bit of advocacy from people of different backgrounds to ensure that your children don't go through things that are unnecessary and unfair. And so it's important to me to have I have uh, about 3 moms in the community that we just get
Yeah.
together and just started chat through. Sometimes we go hang out at the pool or whatever, but really
Yeah.
it's centered around like just taking care of each other and looking out for each other. So I would say that those are the people within my village. In addition to all of the mentees I have taken on as well,
Yeah.
to make sure that they have the right career development and life development in and of itself too.
Awesome. Nah, honestly, yes, it, I love that pyramid and how you just put it together visually. I could see, it's not only the career, the personal, but it starts also with the foundation, what you say, like with your family, and knowing that you have people cheering for you during the good and the bad days. So definitely appreciate that. And I really, really thank you for taking this time to just spend with us. And everyone, I just want to say, if you need to check, if you want Kina to mentor you or someone going through that, she's a great leader. You can check out Kina's on LinkedIn, Kinna Thomas, and she's a great mentor. And I know I'm adding mentors to her. So Sorry, Kina, but I think there are a lot of people there that can use your advice and sounding board. So thank you for coming through.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I'm happy to help however I can. My name is spelled Kinna, and my last name is Thomas. I can certainly be found on LinkedIn if you want to connect there. I'd love to connect and just chat a little bit more about your journey and how I can help.
Awesome. Have a great day,
Thank
Kina.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Village You Don't See. Thank you and have a blessed day.